Kinich has been out for a couple of days now, and since I've had the chance to properly test him out more extensively, I thought I'd deliver my more fleshed out thoughts on the character, evaluate whether my pre-release pros and cons were accurate or not, and give my opinion on where I think he currently stands in the meta. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. A decent place to start would be the first pro that I mentioned about him before, that being that this guy would be the absolute king of Burning and Burgeon teams. I'd say yeah, that's true, but to be fair, no way, he's good with Burning and Burgeon. It's almost like he's the only dedicated Pyro-Dendro-related Dendro DPS. A better way of evaluating how much of a flaming king he is would be looking at how creatively they managed to make the reaction work with him, aka, does it feel shoehorned or natural? Okay, so, the main reason you want Burning for this guy is because of his A1. He restores Night Soul when enemies have such a reaction inflicted on them, which allows Kinich to blast off more nukes, which are the main meat of his overall damage share, so essentially, it's good for more damage. Plus, when it comes to external sources, both his main 5-star weapon and his main craftable from Notlan want the enemies to have some kind of pyro reaction triggered in order for their passives to work. However, other options don't have such restrictions, so this isn't as big of a point. Still relevant though. So, the main thing that the reaction provides him is more skill blasts. Honestly, I actually like that. I think it's more creative compared to Emily, where they pretty much just went, have Burning literally make her damage output higher. Yeah, that'll work. Of course, to her credit, she has the Lumidu's case stacks going for her too. Yet, in Kinich's case, the benefits feel more practical and hands-on, if that makes sense. More fun to use. Yet, that's another thing. Emily, one of his best teammates, also wants Burning to be on enemies, so he benefits from the reaction in terms of his greatest teammates as well. However, if you're playing the Farina Baiju variant, then this point isn't applicable anymore. Even so, he can play with other neat teammates like Toma who really love Burgeon comps. Dia has also been seeing quite a bit of success in recent Notlan teams as well, thanks to how she slots nicely into Burning and Burgeon teams. Plus, her skill's large radius coincides with Kinich's long-range playstyle pretty nicely. So yeah, he definitely is the Burning and Burgeon king, as the reaction provides him a benefit that no other current Dendro DPS can take advantage of, that uniquely affects his gameplay in a cool way. I had commented on how I expected Kinich to be a single target beast. This is true, he feels very good against bosses, because it's real neat to circle around them and focus all your range on one main target enemy. We've had a lot of stationary bosses in Abyss as of late, so I'm not sure if I'm gonna suddenly hate how he feels once the Ruined Serpent or when it's come back. But as of now, yeah, he feels very competent against single target content. However, might I introduce you to Venti Kinich? This is a team that provides the usually single target lad with some amazing AoE, and it's a synergy where you can't simply use Kazuha for the same or a better result. Kinich uniquely wants Venti's Void Suck because his skill is able to hit 2 targets at once with much more ease, allowing for more overall DPS to be dealt. His normal attacks can then also hit more than 1 target at a time, which is pretty nutty in my opinion. So while Kinich may be rather single target typically speaking, sticking the cool dude with the cutie patootie can solve such a thing. But what if you're in a multi-wave chamber where the enemies are big, ungroupable robots? Well, he has some naturally AoE teammates, namely Xiangling, who applies Pyro in a super wide AoE and can do some neat damage while she's at it, especially if you have Farina or Bennett in the team, so that she can take advantage of their meaty buffs. I will say that please don't be a fool like me and make sure to always move counterclockwise, because Xiangling's Pyronado won't hit the enemies if you go clockwise. This does go against the occasional blind spots that Kinich summons for extra Night Soul, making him unable to utilize them if they don't spawn in a favorable location. However, making the most of Xiangling's power application is more important in my opinion. TLDR, the guy cooks in single target, but he is far from being limited only to it if you know what you're doing. I do think that Kinich is very unique, which is something that I talked about in my pros and cons for the guy. His nukes, while they do feel kind of similar to Navia's playstyle, which I also greatly enjoy, are far from the only thing that his active playstyle offers. The thing is, Kinich himself has something really interesting going for him. He is a character that uses a melee weapon, in this case a claymore, while being played as a ranged character. While you might think at first glance, Juice, that doesn't necessarily heavily affect the gameplay experience. Oh yes it does. Because then you have to build your teams with a knowledge of his incredible movement in mind, and thanks to this, amazing synergies such as the Venti Kinich AoE combo are opened up, all because the Epic Dendro dude has a very unique playstyle that specifically benefits from the Sucking Void's qualities. This also paves the way for Kinich to use some more interesting characters in his comps, such as Dia, thanks to her skill's large range, all because of how interestingly his kit has been designed. However, with that being said, I did say that I felt like Kinich's teams were going to be kind of awkward. Dude, that could not be further from the truth. I genuinely feel like his teams all work perfectly well in practice. Dare I say I particularly enjoy how his teams play quite a bit. This is for a few reasons. Firstly, I think it's really fun putting together a team that supports a character that is ranged in such a unique way. It's a very different style of gameplay, as they also have to be fine with his tendency to spin about in circles as he does his normal attacks. I genuinely do not find his playstyle clunky in the slightest, and I'm incredibly pleasantly surprised by that. Secondly, I said that characters such as Bennett wouldn't be that good with Kinich during pre-release. I will be honest, I don't love playing Bennett with Kinich, and I do think that he doesn't stay in the circle long enough to really benefit from it. He's also out of the circle for too long for the 2-second linger of Bennett's buff to always be effective. It does benefit his teammates. For example, Emily in the snapshotting Xiangling. Because of this, I don't like Bennett in Kinich Burgeon teams, where you're obviously going to want to use a better pyro applicator anyways. But in burning teams, I think Bennett is pretty good. The buffs he provides to the rest of your team make up for his circle impact issues. With that being said, it's also partially because I don't think there's a better slot over him in a pure burning team as of now. Yes, you can use other options over him, but why do that when his buffs are going to be the most ideal for the entire team? Plus, if you do manage to get Kinich's skill blast perfectly timed to take place when you've got Bennett's buff, oh boy, you're in for a true treat, because as we all know from Kinich's A4, attack percent is a Saurian hunter's best friend. I did mention that I felt like the dude's teams were going to be pretty expensive to run, due to units like Emily being very niche. Where are all my fellow Emily pullers at? I'm sure there's only about 10 of us, but we're strong in our small numbers. Shoot man, I even went for R1. Then there's Baiju for the Farina Baiju variant of Kinich's teams. I'll say that the Doctor is definitely a more owned unit compared to Emily, especially considering the existence of our beloved Hydro Archon Farina. But Bro still isn't exactly the most popular character on the planet. Blood had the misfortune of releasing right when Honkai Star Rail came out. Way to completely break the release hype for this dude. Even so, I don't particularly agree with such a sentiment anymore. Yes, those two characters aren't really the most popular units on the planet, but he has viable alternatives. The Venti team, for example, is a very neat one. Listen man, I'm gonna glaze this team every chance I get. It literally contains two of my favorites in it. Don't knock it till you try it. Also, being able to use Best Boy Venti is always a major plus. And as for 4-star replacements, a 4-piece Deepwood holding Kale on the end of your team will most definitely do the trick in a free-to-play Kinich burning team. Shoot, the unit herself is free. You can even play Deepwood Fischl in free-to-play Kinich burning teams as another method of applying said artifact set. And if you want to play free-to-play Burgeon Kinich, well, Kinich National anyone? The cool thing here is that Kinich actually benefits from a national setup quite nicely, because Burning is present alongside Xiangling being here, who is, at least in my opinion, Kinich's current best-in-slot Pyro teammate. So while his absolute best-in-slot premium teams are indeed rather expensive in terms of 5-star cost, simply because he demands very niche units in his final slot, he has enough highly competent and well-performing alternatives that lead me to believe that he isn't really all that dear teams-wise. Another point I raised in regards to Kinich was how his future potential may be pretty goated. My answer to this now? Dude, how am I supposed to know? I'm a gacha game YouTuber, not a future teller, unfortunately. Would be neat if I could do that though. Anyways, that's besides the point. My answer doesn't have to be complex because it kind of speaks for itself. Movu Ika, the Pyro Archon, the motorcycle lady. She's obviously going to buff Kinich in some way, shape, or form, the same way that all of her Archons massively buff the new original units that came out before them. The only situation in which this could be challenged is if Movu Ika was a dedicated on-field DPS with absolutely zero supportive qualities. I'd be extremely surprised if that were to be the case though, because even Raiden, an Archon who can be played as an on-field DPS, has supportive capabilities. Either way, we'll just have to wait and see, but I am pretty much convinced that Kinich will get quite the leg up once Movu Ika rolls around. Then for what we've all been waiting for, my current conclusive thoughts when it comes to Kinich's position in the Genshin Impact meta. I think he's mid-A tier. He's no insane meta behemoth in the way that Nervalette, Arlecchino, or Linny are, but I'd say he's a solid performer in the way that somebody like Chloriander is. Consider that this is before Movu Ika. Once the Lady of Flames graces us at last, this very well could change. I'd say that he's extremely potent as of now, and because his playstyle is so unique to himself, Hoyo can easily get experimental with his future teammates. This might pave the way for more unique kits, which excites me to no end. Trust me, I literally did not know what to think about his potential position in the meta during pre-release. He's so different compared to all other characters to the point where I was sort of lost on whether he was good or bad. As of now, I actually think he's quite decent. Funnily enough, I was expecting him to be worse, but he actually feels really strong in my opinion. As strong as Mualani? Nah, now that people have had more time to build her, I think it's pretty hard to compare to insane 500 to 600k vapes. Is he more fun than her though? Oh, absolutely. I think his meta standing is good as of now, with the potential to get even better once good old Mavu Ika comes out. I believe him to have the most fun playstyle in all of Genshin Impact, and he's one of my new favorite DPS characters now. He's gonna become a permanent fixture in my Overworld and Abyss runs. I mean, of course Kinich is based. He literally works with Venti and Farina. How can a character that uses those two not be based? Plus, I really enjoy using Emily as well, so that's also a big plus to his fun factor, at least to me. Great unit. I'm happy that my favorite Not One unit came out so quickly, since now I can ride full steam ahead to Mavu Ika's banner. Hope she improves my awesome lad by a sizable chunk. Hopefully this video was able to tell you my more developed opinions on Kinich now that we've had him out for a while. This has been Juice, signing out, and do you think a How tastes like a Nintendo Switch cartridge? If you don't know what that tastes like, don't try it, not worth it.